The city slumbered under a blanket of stars, its streets silent and still. Sarah sat in her dimly lit apartment, her eyes fixed on the clock, ticking away the moments until midnight. Each tick seemed to echo in the quiet room, heightening her anticipation. As the clock struck 12, the phone jolted her from her thoughts with its sharp ring. Sarah's heart leaped into her throat as she reached for the receiver, her hand trembling slightly. She hesitated for a moment, then lifted it to her ear. "Hello?" she said tentatively, her voice barely louder than a whisper. Static crackled on the other end, followed by a low, raspy voice. "Sarah," it whispered, sending chills down her spine. "I've been waiting for you." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. How did the caller know her name? "Who is this?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. The voice chuckled softly, sending shivers down her spine. "All in good time, Sarah. All in good time. But first, you must do something for me." Sarah's mind raced with 1,000 questions, but she knew better than to argue. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice quivering with unease. "I want you to meet me," the voice replied. "Alone, in 1 hour, at the old warehouse on Elm Street. Come alone, Sarah, and don't be late." Before Sarah could respond, the line went dead, leaving her alone in the darkness, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she should call the police, but something inside her compelled her to obey the caller's instructions. Against her better judgment, she slipped on her coat and headed out into the night. The old warehouse loomed ahead, its decrepit facade casting ominous shadows in the moonlight. Sarah hesitated for a moment, her hand trembling as she reached for the rusted doorknob. What if this was a trap? What if the caller intended to harm her? But curiosity got the better of her, and with a shaky breath, she pushed open the door and stepped inside. The air was thick with dust and decay, and Sarah's footsteps echoed loudly in the empty space. "Hello?" she called out, her voice quivering with fear. "Is anyone there?" Silence greeted her, broken only by the sound of her own breathing. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she made her way further into the warehouse, her eyes scanning the darkness for any sign of movement. And then she saw him, a figure lurking in the shadows, his features obscured by the darkness. "Who are you?" Sarah demanded, her voice wavering. The figure stepped forward into the light, and Sarah gasped in horror. It was her ex-boyfriend, Alex, his eyes cold and distant. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice trembling with fear. Alex's lips curled into a sinister smile. "You, Sarah. I want you." Before Sarah could react, Alex lunged forward, his hands closing around her throat. She struggled against him, her heart pounding with terror. But he was too strong, his grip unyielding. As darkness closed in around her, Sarah realized with a sinking heart that she had fallen right into the caller's trap. The next morning, Sarah's lifeless body was found in the abandoned warehouse, her death shrouded in mystery. The midnight caller remained at large, his identity still unknown, his motives unclear. And as the city slept, the phone continued to ring, its shrill sound echoing through the night, a chilling reminder of the darkness that lurked in the shadows. In the days that followed, the police launched a thorough investigation into Sarah's murder. Detectives combed through evidence, interviewed witnesses, and followed every lead. But the trail seemed to lead nowhere. Meanwhile, Sarah's friends and family struggled to come to terms with her tragic death. They held a memorial service in her honor, gathering to mourn the loss of a beloved daughter, sister, and friend. But amid the grief and confusion, one question haunted them all. Who was the midnight caller, and what was his connection to Sarah's murder? As weeks turned into months, the case grew colder, the leads drying up one by one. But for Detective Jameson, the case was far from over. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Sarah's murder than met the eye, that there was a piece of the puzzle he was missing. Driven by a relentless determination, Detective Jameson continued to pursue the case, following every lead, chasing down every clue. And then, one day, a breakthrough came. A witness who claimed to have seen a man matching the description of the midnight caller near the warehouse on the night of Sarah's murder. Armed with this new information, Detective Jameson launched a fresh investigation, re-interviewing witnesses, re-examining evidence, leaving no stone unturned in his quest for the truth. And finally, after months of tireless work, the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. Detective Jameson uncovered a web of deceit and betrayal, leading him to the shocking truth behind Sarah's murder. The midnight caller was none other than Sarah's ex-boyfriend, Alex, driven by jealousy and rage to commit the ultimate act of violence. He had orchestrated the entire scheme, luring Sarah to the warehouse under the guise of a mysterious caller, then ambushing her in the darkness. With the evidence stacked against him, Alex was arrested and charged with Sarah's murder. And as he stood trial for his crimes, the city watched with bated breath, eager to see justice served for the innocent life that had been taken. In the end, justice prevailed, and Alex was sentenced to life in prison for his heinous actions. And as the city breathed a collective sigh of relief, Detective Jameson closed the case, knowing that Sarah's memory would live on in the hearts of those who loved her, forever remembered as a victim of senseless violence. But for Detective Jameson, the case was more than just another solved murder. It was a reminder of the darkness that lurked in the shadows, of the dangers that lay hidden beneath the surface of everyday life. And as he returned to his desk, ready to take on the next case, he vowed to never forget the lessons he had learned, to always remain vigilant in the face of evil, to never let another innocent life be taken by the hands of a midnight caller.